Hello, everybody. Welcome to the full moon in Gemini live stream. This is S.J. Anderson. Glad you're here. And I hope you're having a wonderful holiday week. If you're in the North America, particularly USA, I don't think that holiday Thanksgiving is really much anywhere, is much celebrated much in other parts of the world. But anyhow, welcome here. We're going to break down that full moon in Gemini today, and I'm really happy to be with you to talk about astrology with you together today, and just chill and hang. So let's just jump right in. As you know, I like to build out these presentations when I do talks like this, and what we're going to do in this video is a general breakdown of the full moon in Gemini. It's symbolism. We are going to then look at one chart for an election for this waning lunar phase. And then I want to do horoscopes for all signs, just some fast moving horoscopes trying to get into whatever the symbolism is of your rising or sun sign, or however you want to read from whatever sign you want to read from. Yeah, celebrations of Zeus in abundance. That's really cool for Thanksgiving. I know a lot of people are talking about it's always on a Thursday, which is a Jupiter's day. So there's this real abundant feature to that. If you layer in planetary days, I think that's really cool to be thinking about. Hey everyone, what's up everyone? Great to be here, great to be here. And so yeah, we're going to do those horoscopes for all signs. Let's just keep pushing through. You know, this is an interesting full moon, really interesting one. Mercury obviously is the domicile lord of Gemini. So here's that moon in Gemini, 4 degrees, 41 degree minutes. Let's see this slide. I guess this is, I'm already, just to come back here, I'm going to ground in a little bit with some context. That's kind of how I want to introduce this full moon before we dive into the actual features of the chart. And part of that context is just that Mercury will be stationing retrograde here in early December or mid-December on the 13th of December. But technically Mercury currently is in shadow, so-called shadow, which is a whole, kind of a new thing that astrologers tend to like to talk about, planets being in shadow. And all it means is that it's past the degree where it will station direct. I think it's the 23rd degree. Yeah, 23rd degree or 22 degrees on 2nd January. Mercury will station direct in Sagittarius. And so in this full moon chart, Mercury is 2 degrees into its shadow. And I mean, I guess I'll say this here. I like to think about retrogrades as beginning when the planet enters the sign. That was 10 November when Mercury entered Sagittarius, and will leave when Mercury leaves Capricorn finally, which is later, which is wider than the technical shadow of its retrograde, because Mercury is filtering through those sectors of our charts and lives for that whole period. And it's not until it gets a new sign or house that it's kind of fully refreshed. But either way, I mean, the point is that I want to say is that we've got a major feature of December's astrology, and the astrology we're into now is review, pause, delay, rework, rest. I think we're feeling that with this holiday season moment, but that'll continue into December as Mercury gets closer to stationing retrograde, actually stations retrograde, then moves backward all through the middle of the month of December. Christmas, those holidays, all of those holidays will have a Mercury retrograde. And so what a time to just kind of wait and plan and chill with loved ones and talk to people, but maybe not as dynamic as some of the other years. So I kind of like that it's this overlapping Mercury retrograde with the holiday period. Let's keep going here. Yeah. So that's some of the context to this current moment. The other thing is that I want to point out to you all is that 1 January 2024, I say everything leads here. You see that 1 January 2024. And look at this chart, why it's so powerful. You have on 1 January, Mercury's direct station in Sagittarius, right here, 22 degrees. But you also have right around this time, 2 days before, on the 31st of December, actually the day before, Jupiter stations direct. So, 2 retrogrades come into completion. The so-called blocks are removed during a direct station, and now we can move forward, begin moving forward again with the direct station. That is right around the new year. You also have, on the 29th of December, Venus entering Sagittarius, leaving Scorpio, leaving the sign of its, detriment there in Scorpio and entering Sagittarius. So you get this upgraded Venus, which will exchange signs with Jupiter and Taurus, Venus from Sagittarius. You get Mars on 4 January, exalted in Capricorn. And then you get these 2 direct stations. And so this little pocket that we're kind of going to review in December, but then we're going to hit the ground running in January with some real dynamic forward-moving astrology. So I just want to lay that out here as context, because it's worth considering, as we begin breaking down this singular moment, the full moon in Gemini. Actually, what is these larger container that it's held in? And of course, we had eclipse season, and of course, we had all of that other stuff that we're over now that I'll refer to a little bit here. So anyhow, that's some of the context. Let's keep pushing. Let's sift through here. All right, here's the chart. 27 November, okay, 9:16 UTC, Monday morning. That will put you late. You will have gone to bed. Most people, or a lot of people, like in New York City, you'll be lying in your bed when this arrives. I think it's 3 a.m. in New York City. That pushes you back to just around midnight in LA. Asia will be in their afternoon, down under your afternoon. So we're talking Monday. And we're ending the week with this full moon. We start the new one with this full moon. I kind of like that because we can kind of peak that energy right on Sunday into Monday, and then we can kind of wane next week and kind of rest. That period between Thanksgiving and Christmas holidays, or just holiday season holidays, always can be a little bit lackadaisical, can it? Like with the work week, where people are just waiting, or companies are kind of winding down. Maybe people are already planning into 2024. I think that happens here with this retrograde that I just referred to. So that's part of this moment. What is Gemini? This is the main archetype. When you do these new moon and full moon breakdowns, really the primary archetype is the sign of the moon. That's what we're trying to dive into. And so we'll be talking a lot here about the archetype and focus, the twins, Gemini, the twins, what that might mean, but just kind of here an entree into it. Duality, two things at once, right? Two things, not just one thing, but two. A mirror, right? Seeing things in a mirror. Multiplicity, many things. I know Gemini, the glyph is 2 pillars, but I think you can signify with Mercury many things: children, youth, games. A lot of those significations imply many people at one time, and many people existing at one time. And so that's a main theme here, juggling a lot that's going on. Maybe you feel busy. Maybe your holiday Thanksgiving celebrations has triggered up a lot of stuff. One thing I was thinking is that, eclipse season was kind of a tear in the matrix or something. Maybe that's not the correct phrase, but it's just kind of a tear in a way. And so we're now in the wake of those eclipses, and with this mutable season arriving, maybe those eclipses did something where there's just a lot happening, or you may be juggling a lot. And I think that's worth considering. Let's see, occult fan, you say commerce. Yeah, I mean, that's certainly a signification of Mercury. And what do we have now? Black Friday, right? Everybody's buying stuff. So it's part here of the moment. I know oftentimes, what is it called, Cyber Monday? Isn't that was, at least when I was in America a few years back, the Cyber Monday was becoming a big deal. So that's a full moon in Gemini on Cyber Monday. That is kind of perfect symbolism. Let's keep going. What is Gemini? Let's break it down deeper. It's an air sign. And so the element of air, things that are unseen, this has always been my favorite way to think about it. I think this is from Agrippa. I don't have the exact quote here, but the notion is that we can't see the air. You can feel it. The words that we speak, those sound waves, travel through the air, right? I think that's where the idea of language and wordplay comes in, is that we say words and it's moving in this kind of unseen way through the air. And then when the sound vibration of the words arrives, right, it's images that get created in our mind, our thoughts. So there's this kind of, and we can't see thoughts, so maybe with the new AI tech, right, we're going to be able to see thoughts in real time. But, up until this time, thoughts are unseen. So there's this kind of ethereal, abstract feature to the air element that is part of Gemini. It's mutable. I already went into that, but it's a bunch of those things, a bunch of unseen things, words and thoughts. It's a growth of those things, not just simply one, like I'd said earlier. Mercury is the domicile lord when we talk about Gemini, and that's as we mentioned earlier, there's commerce, there's words, thoughts, jokes, language games, wordplay, youth, tricksterism, communication with the gods. What is mercurial as an adjective aside from astrology? Someone that moves fast, hard to pin down. That's Mercury. It's just fast speed and a lot of things happening at once. So, just that alone, knowing that there's a full moon in Gemini this weekend or Monday, and this weekend, right on Sunday, maybe we're building to it, might help you process, right? That alone, that's the power of astrology. Just one archetype, knowing that's been triggered, gives us great power to process our reality, because a lot of people may be feeling a lot of mercurial, power expansion right now. Okay, let me keep going. Everybody can hear me okay. Comments are welcome. So if you want to just write, I'll try to get to them. I just want to make sure, this is going off okay. And I'm just going to keep going here and assume it is. This is the layer of Gemini that I also want to bring in here, which is Saturn. We don't often talk about Saturn as it relates to Gemini, but having conversations with some of friends recently about this, and it's the triplicity lord. It's the day triplicity lord of Gemini. Those trigon lords are extremely important when we understand, in my view, the meaning and the symbolism and the mythology of a sign. And thank you very much for confirming that, Jen, and let's appreciate that. And so when you think about Saturn then coming into the air, everything we just described, words, air, immutability, language, Mercury, it's curiosity kills the cat. I know that's a little bit of a dark phrase, but this is the curiosity is Gemini. But it's the idea that, you get too curious, what are you going to do? You're going to stumble into very serious topics. And that's where ultimately the Gemini leads to, is that you just start talking, hey, what's this? What's that? Asking questions, scrutinizing, hey, cool, what's that? Pretty soon, you're deep down the rabbit hole and you're never coming back, because you've read too many books or you've studied too many truths. You've been exposed to too many ideas. And I think that's where the Saturn comes in. And I love this pair because I think Saturn ultimately is where we need to find those foundations of reality. One way or the other, we have to find our Saturn to function. And Mercury will lead us there, reading, writing, asking questions, and exploring. So what did I have here? Let's explore, let's notate. That's Mercury. This is this is that, this is that. Try to organize things through language. Ask questions, inquire, describe, and study. Then we get led to the serious topics. And of course, it makes for great conversation. I don't know how many of you have been around Gemini energy. I grew up around it. Many friends are Gemini. It's always that verbal component, always talking, chatting, exploring. And that's one of my favorite signs actually is Gemini, because I love to be around the verbalism of the Gemini energy. Okay, let's keep pushing. The Lover's card is emblematic of this Gemini energy. Check it out. Look at these two cards. This is a colorized version of the Rider-Waite-Smith deck here on the right. Those aren't the original colors. There was a lot of people that used the Pamela Coleman Smith public domain images and did new coloration and then kind of made it their own. That's got a little bit of a dynamic coloration there. You can see that. Your last two X's were Gemini. There you go. This comes, Cameron. This comes right back in here of what I want to talk about, which is the relational component of this whole talk. Actually, is about relationship, because this whole full moon moment you're going to see later is about partnership and relationship. It's embedded strongly into this full moon, and the Lovers is one way to get us there because. So I like it because Saturn is the sky god. Like there's this god in the sky, right, overseeing everything. That's the Saturn component to Gemini. But then you also bring the quarreling component, which I didn't mention earlier, is a fundamental signification of Mercury. Fighting, lying, what is real, scrutiny. Hey, that's not true. You said that before. You didn't say this. It's all the shades of meaning. Well, I meant this, not this. These kind of debates about language. But a classic signification of Mercury, pick up any ancient text, is lying, cheating, stealing, thieving, and so, or quarreling, right? These people are fighting about something. There's a dispute or a disagreement. They're in an argument when you go to the Tarot of Marseille and you pick up the Lover's card from the Tarot of Marseille. I think too about words and gossip, right? Gossip is, Christian religion at least is like, don't gossip, because it can create pain. You start talking about other people's business and pretty soon it gets back to them, and pretty soon it's like that game of telephone and the original statement becomes something totally different, and then all of a sudden people's are angry and there's drama and confusion and fights, frankly. And so what do I have here? If you ask too many questions, right, you might not like the answers. This is also Gemini, the quarreling side of it. I think about the classic case, like the boyfriend or girlfriend reads the diary, right? And FAFO is going to be a major theme of this talk. F around and find out. You go in and you're curious and you find out. Sometimes you're not going to like what you find. And what is it going to do? It is going to create disputes and division. A lover's quarrel, right? This is the classic phrase that you hear. On the other hand, and I want to say this, is that you might need to do this kind of stuff. Like I'm not, this downside of Gemini being quarreling and disputes, to me isn't like a admonition where you always would exclude that, right? It's not always like, don't ever do that. Sometimes you have to do it, right? You have to know, you have to, inquire, you have to communicate and talk and find out the information, because your important things may depend on that. We need to scrutinize claims, right, to protect ourselves. So it's this kind of balance, how to do that well and healthily. And I think that's majorly triggered here into this moment. Let's see. Funny about the Saturn aspects. I've been looking. Wait, let me just going to share this and read it. Funny about the Saturn aspect. I've been looking at better ways to organize my thoughts through better journaling, note taking to help improve my memory. Yeah, it's a beautiful thing about Mercury. When you have a power Mercury, this is a core signification of Mercury. And I always recommend to people to write, to process life through writing. It's a beautiful, beautiful way to do it. Okay, so I'm going to go to the next slide. Mercury. So Mars and Saturn are in hard aspect by very close degree here. That's kind of why I went to that kind of dark side of Gemini on that last side, because look at the chart. Moon, 4 degrees. Sun, 4 degrees, always opposite during a full moon. But Mars, 2 degrees Sagittarius, right, with the sun. Saturn, 0 degrees, 58 degree minutes Pisces. So you have a mutable malefic T-square, is how we might say this, built into this chart. Very difficult energy. Any ancient astrologer that's like a pure ancient text astrologer would say this is just as horrific as you can ever get, because you have hard aspect over the moon is overcome by Saturn and Mars is opposing the moon. It's very, very rough energy from that kind of pure traditional or ancient astrological view. And I think we have to acknowledge that, right? That's part of this moment symbolically. Now, that doesn't mean all of our lives are going to be, crazy, but it might explain it if they are, right? This would certainly explain it if they do go crazy. Let me just keep going here. So I have serious fights. I'm going to talk much more later about Mars and Saturn, but what else is going on in this chart? Look at Venus. You might say, yeah, hey, Venus, a nice air trine, Venus and the moon. Hey, really cool. But one, it's a wide orb, which is okay. It's still mixing in the air element together with the full moon. But look, it's right with Ketu, that south node. And I think that does something to Venus that by this time, this is how you might say this, by this time in Venus's transit through Libra, it's basically joined with Ketu here. Venus is in a whole nother world right now. It's not really, I think, able to do as much as we might like it in this moment. What do I have here? Drained and spiritualized beauty. Okay, that's what Venus is. It's basically a mendicant just sitting in an ashram trying to get away from the world. And it's the sole final dispositor of the sky. Every planet ultimately will come and be ruled by this Venus. So that's a major energy here that it's worth saying here. And then I don't know how much I'll say about it later, but just think about that too. Maybe you want to just pull back from the social world, instead of Venus and Libra, which might otherwise be social connectivity. Maybe you want to go pure Ketu for this full moon. I know I am. And by the way, anytime you have a hard aspect, Mars and Saturn with the luminaries, look, the advice is to not do anything. Okay. Don't go out bike riding. Don't climb El Capitan, free climb El Capitan. Don't do these wild and high risk stuff. Okay. You want to avoid that here this weekend and into Monday. Just as a general astrological advice, I think that's pretty general advice that is probably applicable for everybody. Jupiter is averse to the full moon. You can see 12th from the moon. That's going to bring some hidden themes and maybe challenge. And the point of this slide above all is it's just a nasty full moon. All right. Avoid travel and exertion as much as you can and do Venus Ketu, go pure mendicant, right? Think about beauty and meditate on your beauty. Let's see what we've got here. Mercury always finds a way, Krista, often through a Gemini. Yeah. And a Gemini is the great, go talk to a Gemini about your problems and they're going to give you a bunch of solutions and answers. The terror of the Gemini decans, I believe. Yes, this is a great point. Under Mutz, the Gemini decans, 8, 9, 10 of swords, the worst, the most shocking and kind of some of the so-called quote unquote worst symbolism in the tarot. Of course, everything has two light and dark, and nothing's ever good or bad. But yes, that's worth pointing out. The T-square is going to be rough. Let me see here. Interesting how Venus conjoins Ketu and then enters her judgment. Yes, Jana, that's a real important part of the upcoming astrology where Venus is shifting here. And I'm not going to do too much of the breakdown here, but that's going to come pretty quickly in December. Venus will be into Scorpio, and there's this whole Venus dance that we could also follow. That's not necessarily part of this video. Watch the World Astrology Report monthly forecast for December. We're going to go all into that Venus and Scorpio fully. but it's a big, interesting part of our dance in 2023, with so much Venus being the focus of everything. And then now Venus really does have to, I think in that world astrology report, I don't know what edit made it, but I was talking about the morning after is my idea of Venus and Scorpio. It's the morning after, where you look around and you're like, oh shoot, how much did I party and what are the consequences going to be? So, okay, let's push on. I just want to say this. I want to bring Cosmos and Psyche, Intimations of a New World. Don't you love that subtitle? It's so, academic and just kind of highbrow. This is the Tarnas book, Imitations of a New World View. Sorry, I didn't add the word view there. Tarnas, 2006. This is kind of a seminal textbook on astrology. It's highly influential. I've got astrologer friends. They're only Tarnas astrologers and only into the real archetypal matrix of it all. But the thing about Tarnas's book that I love is that he comes in with hard aspects as a primary way that he delineates. He calls them the quadrature aspects, and that's conjunctions, oppositions, or squares. So this full moon is a quadrature aspect full moon. And he says that they indicate a more dynamic and potentially critical interaction. And I love the word dynamic. This is one I've pulled from Tarnas and I often deploy, which is just dynamic. And what does it mean? Change, right? We're pushed into change. The squares and oppositions propel us through tension and through difficulty. We get propelled into taking new action or doing new things. And so that's one optimistic way to maybe view this full moon. Yeah, there are hard aspects. Yes, there's a major T-square. But what if it's just, this is the moment where we're going to say, all right, I have to do it. And we do it. And we're pushed into doing it. There's no choice anymore. And then we look back and say, hey, thank you, Mars. Thank you, Saturn. Thank you for those hard aspects to get us going here into where we so-called need to be. Okay, Gemini new moon on natal Gemini moon. I'm going to do I'm going to come here. Psy Harlot. There will be a time-stamped horoscopes at the end of this talk where I'll talk about Gemini and that will help you answer that. If it's on the natal Gemini moon, just think moon. I mean, that's a theme. Moon, body, home, mother. Those are themes right now for you, thinking about the moon. And then all the stuff I already talked about with Gemini would be part of that too. Okay, let's come to the next thing. Look at some of these headlines that have come out recently. I think it's very much about the moment like this, dynamic change. Critical, that was another word Tarnas used. So OpenAI, Sam Altman's temporary departure connected with Project Q, AI threat to humanity. And apparently there was this letter that talked about this discovery could so-called threaten humanity. You don't get more critical than that, right? These headlines are pretty heavy and serious. Mars square Saturn with the luminaries and hard aspect. That's a story I'm watching. Here is the geolocational. Look, this is hard to see, but you can see this is Mars right in the midheaven running through Jerusalem. That's another thing to keep in mind. Both the new moon and full moon this month had Mars right in the midheaven running through Jerusalem. And that's the major story all month. I mean, it's just, it's just discussions about the war that's happening in Palestine, Israel. And so, I mean, the astrology was pointing us to this. And this, we knew this thousands, hundreds of years ago with these ephemerides. We could have looked at this. So that was a way to predict war in Palestine, Israel during this period when you just looked at where Mars was culminating during the new moon and full moon here in November 2023. And the story I'm watching here with that story is that there's currently been a ceasefire. I think it started a temporary ceasefire, 22 November, but it was only supposed to be 4 days to exchange some prisoners and get some aid into Gaza. And it ends then right around the time the full moon arrives. So as this full moon arrives, the ceasefire will be over. And I think Israel has said, we're just going to keep dropping bombs. So, look for that to be a major headline, which would fit this symbolism, right? Hard aspect, Mars and Saturn, culminating right through Jerusalem, and the war is back. I am hoping and praying it gets extended. I've seen a lot of people talking about that online. So let's hope it does. This was just a tweet that has that from Good Morning Britain. Okay, let me just keep shifting. That's just a little bit of the kind of mundane I wanted to layer in here. Let me just come through here. Hey, still light. AI has a Sagittarius stellium. Thoughts? I think we can come into Sagittarius as very much outer world activity. And so I guess if we want to think about OpenAI, how active it's going to be in terms of building and changing the outer reality, that's where I would come in with that. This is not just some kind of passive game that we're going to do on our computers. This is very much something that's going to extend into our materiality to rearrange it. And I think we've already seen that with AI being so embedded in many businesses even already. Crimea is above that line too. Yeah, it is Merca. And, let's just hope. I saw some news that the US and Europe have been putting pressure on Zelensky to maybe negotiate. So I don't know the update with that. It seems like the situation in Ukraine has really been backburnered. So I'm going to have to check up on that. But that did come across my feed recently. So maybe there will be some breakthroughs there. And let's hope there is some kind of, just resolution that can be negotiated. Okay, let's shift here. And I want to come to derived houses from the full moon. Of course, this is how I like to delineate these because it gives us the house information. We can layer that in symbolically. Here's that full moon. Right in the first whole sign house, we're deriving the houses from that location of the moon. And you can see right away the domicile Lord Mercury is in that 7th house from Gemini. And you have this stellium in Sagittarius, the 7th from Gemini, meaning that one way into the full moon, it's not just that Gemini is the lover's card, so we're talking relationships, it's also that the ruler is opposite it. And so that's the main way in. I was thinking one of the other main ways into that this moment being about partnership. I love the 7th house as the other. I think that's a higher octave delineation for it. We have the self of the first, and then this is the other, like the mirror. What's the Nico? Is it the Velvet Underground? I'll be your mirror. You like that song? The idea is that the relationship becomes the mirror of the self. And so we learn when we are in dyadic mirroring with other people, we see ourselves. Sometimes that's the only way you can see yourself fully is the mirroring that comes from the other, but it's the self and the other. And so I would encourage you to think about in this moment, who are the others in your life? What is the theme of the other in your life right now? Who has emerged to kind of take the place of your 7th house role right now? And keep in mind, this is not always romantic. It can be any other person can kind of take the place of that other for you. Sometimes it's temporary dynamics with friends or with coworkers, or a lot of people can sort of fill that otherization part of our lives. Certainly there's long-term partnerships, whether that's business or lovers or friends. And so I just have here post-eclipse season, the focus now becomes on partnership mutation, right? The mutable signs. You have 5 of 7 traditional planets in mutable signs, and the full moon's ruler is opposite it. And so we're really thinking about the dynamic change and the critical nature of our relational activity here, right in this moment of the full moon in Gemini. And so let's keep shifting here. The other side of the pendulum. Yeah. I mean, this is another way to think about it. You swing one, you swing the other, you swing one, you swing the other, and there's always the other. And, or very often there can be a theme of the other, a centering of the other. Okay, let's keep going. This is the cinema that I wanted to bring into this talk. I watched this film again recently, and I was struck just by how much it represents this moment symbolically, the idea of the Gemini, the partnership, right? The twins. And so this movie is A Social Network, released in 2010, directed by David Fincher. A lot of great young actors at the time were in this picture, but it's a film about partnership in business. And I think it's a great example to bring it out of love, right? The 7th house into business partnership. And this is a picture to do that. And the Mark Zuckerberg character the whole film is about him having these partners. He's got 3 little partnerships that he enters, and he basically, all of those partnerships fail, and he emerges as the billionaire king, right? But the theme of the film is that the problem with the partnership, and enemies are the first partners, or can be, right? Often our enemies are people that maybe first we were connected with, and then there's a double cross or a break of trust or a betrayal. Enemies can only become enemies sometimes because they know things about us. They know us intimately. And so they can kind of then know how to trigger us or know exactly how to wage war against us. I know I'm speaking a little bit martial here, but this is all a metaphor for personal life or for business or for even with love relationships, right? They end in divorce disputes. And it's a classic thing where you love someone, you fall in love, and then the fights begin and there's a dispute, and then that's your enemy, right? The lover to enemy pipeline is kind of a classic pipeline. So in a certain way, when you think about 7th house significations, it's romance, it's partnerships in business too, but it's also, some say, open enemies. And I think that's the wisdom there, is that the closest people to us often are the ones that can only betray us and become that pure enemy. And you see this in cinema a lot, like the arch rival. I just watched another picture, the swamp King or something, that's Swamp King's daughter, the Mud King's daughter. It has Daisy Ridley, but I'm not going to say much about that. But basically, there's a love relationship that turns into the final battle between the two in the movie. It's a common arc in cinema when you're writing stories. And so think about that in your life. I mean, if there is immutable changes right now with this T-square triggering some of the relational partnerships, I don't think it has to be some great crisis like I'm talking about here, divorce disputes or some kind of billion-dollar betrayal. But it may be that there's just a dose of that in the moment as you're navigating this November into December, where you're kind of, riding the waves in your partnerships and trying to be, the struggle for intimacy, right? That's one of my favorite words. That's a book, by the way, a therapy book about relationships. Okay, more on the social network. The best friend business partner gets duped out of shares. And I want to come into that component of the picture because the guy's name is Eduardo Saverin in real life, and that was Mark Zuckerberg's Harvard roommate. And basically in the movie, he gets shares in Facebook, but he's too trusting of lawyers. There's a scene where he signs some papers and he just trusted these lawyers, and he didn't realize that paperwork cut him out of the company in a certain way. That can be what Mercury and Sagittarius is right now, right? Sagittarius is the passion, the go-getter. Yes, let's do it. I'm excited. The details that Mercury needs to thrive gets lost in the big picturism of Jupiter ruled Sagittarius, fire sign. And so the idea of too trusting or not being skeptical enough can be a theme in this moment. Now, you may want to check yourself if you're just like thinking, let's just do it. I don't care. I don't need to think anymore. I'm just going to go. You might just want to wait maybe until January. Let that Mercury retrograde purify. And then January, Mercury comes to Aquarius. It'll be real strong. There beginning of the year. Maybe you wait then to take some bold action, but I would certainly wind down right now any kind of lawyerisms or paperwork, or if you're going to do that, pause, delay, scrutinize, extra layers of that. So he gets scammed and then sues. That's also a Mercury theme and a Gemini theme. It's ideas, it's lawyers, it's words, it's word games. If anybody knows legalese out there, it's all about technical definitions of words. Bill Clinton famously saying depends on what the definition of is. I mean, that's the classic Mercury. Those are powers of Mercury, right? Because those are true things. You got to know what that definition is. And so as Mercury is giving over to Jupiter in Sag and losing some of that, you might want to just be careful to get scammed or read the fine print. That's a major part of this moment, big part of this film. And also we have, let me see here, Zuckerberg used the social network to get revenge on his ex-girlfriend, so that makes sense. Yeah, Caroline, that's cool because it's part of that lovers theme that we were talking earlier. And I'm not sure how much, I think some of that was written into the screenplay. I think I've read that beginning opening scene in the bar is just made up, that he actually didn't have that girlfriend, but still it fits thematically from the picture 100%. And it's all about how we present ourselves or how we're communicating to others. I mean, that's what Facebook is. It's using our words and images to communicate. So it's very air sign, age of air. It's all of that stuff for sure. The details get burned away in the flames of Sagittarius, 100%. And it's just, let's move with fiery passion. And that's what I was going to say here, the desire, the Sagittarian desire for more, right? We have Mars, Sun, and Mercury there right now. And that desire, if it's not checked properly, can cause harm to other people. I mean, that might just be what this chart is showing us. Full moon in Gemini, and opposite is this fiery stellium. What if it's not other people harming us? It's us harming others. And I think it's very wise, Twitchy Tuesdays, just to come back to that, to think about maybe it's our passion and we need to check ourselves in our relationships and not hurt the people around us. Always have to bring that man in the mirror idea, to come back to the mirroring of Gemini, the Michael Jackson song. I'm starting with the man in the mirror. And I think that's very, very wise to consider. Let's see here. This all makes me think of divorce lawyers very much. This is what is a major theme in the moment. Mars in the 7th, opposite moon in the 1st. And you're dealing with Gemini air and Mercury legalism. So, I mean, divorce, whether there is literal divorce lawyers in the moment or just themes in our lives, like every day, all of us are communicating with people, some more than others. Some have more intimate partners. And how might these little micro versions of these themes be applicable to you? That's how I would use this. I'm trying to extract some higher level thematic applicability here that we can then apply into the micro level of our lives. I don't think it's going to be certainly like I love this one sheet for the picture. You don't get to 500 million friends without making a few enemies. And I thought that was perfect. Seventh house stellium, few enemies, right? Sagittarius, expanding things. Okay, let me keep pushing. Jesse Eisenberg has a Libra sun, occult fan. Okay, cool, good to know. I had on my list when I was preparing this talk, I wanted to do some of the charts of the actors, and I didn't get actually, or Zuckerberg, because it's a real life derived picture, and I didn't get a chance to do that. Zuckerberg's chart really was interesting to me too. That's the one I'd love to see. Darn it, I forgot to do that. Okay, let's come in. We're winding down this phase, but I want a few more slides on the full moon. Derived houses from the full moon. Exaltation Lord in the 10th. And I want to just bring that in. That's Saturn in the 10th. And how that also is major here, because when we think about our partnerships, our commitments, they've been made to assist our action in the world, right? That can be one way to think about partnerships. Are they assisting our ultimate goal in the world? There was I think a marriage therapist or something, and the one guy was saying the best way to have a long-term relationship is to have a shared goal in the outer world. And then that way, when the phases of Eros maybe shift out into other types of love, or the waxing and waning of Eros, you might have an endeavor like that you join together, like a couple that's writing together, or someone that's joined, like start a group, start a nonprofit together, and they have this kind of mutual passion for some kind of action in the world. And I think that's brought in here. We might want to check, are our partnerships serving our action in the world, or how might we need to readjust the balancing between the action in the world and the partnership? Remember, both ruled by Jupiter. Pisces ruled by Jupiter, Sagittarius ruled by Jupiter. So there's some kind of fusion also with rulership that's telling us, hey, how are those dyadic mirroring partnerships supporting our ultimate goal here? What are we making? What are we doing? What are we building? And do we maybe need to reframe the partnerships in a way? And that's what Zuckerberg does in that film. Like, he just cuts away. Even the Sean Parker character, can't make the cut. Zuckerberg's too Saturn. He's too just Saturn. I'm going to build this thing. We're going to $1 trillion. And Parker's partying. He gets cut out. And so there's something about Saturn overseeing it all, even in this chart, that I think is worth considering, and a component of everything. And even Saturn's relationship to Libra, right? I know Venus is the final dispositor, by dispositor meaning domicile, but Venus gives over to Saturn by exaltation. So there's some kind of hidden Saturn thing. Of course, Saturn always is overseeing it all, but even in this chart, Saturn and Pisces is doing something. And I think it's that AI stuff that we saw. I mean, we're really in this creative expansion, dreamy creative expansion period with Saturn and Pisces. All right, let me just keep going. Sorry, I'm getting off my plan here. Jupiter in the 12th from the full moon may mean looking at obstacles and difficulties. It's another layer here. It's not just a malefic T-square, but it's also the ruling planet of the malefics in the 12th from the moon. And this might be other obstacles that emerge, but it also might mean retreating, doing that Venus Ketu stuff. Now you've got Jupiter and Taurus 12th from Gemini, and it might be another way in. I know I'll be doing this. I'm not riding the bike on Monday. Hell no. I'm not doing it on Sunday or Monday. I will not be out there doing anything too high risk, for sure. So, okay, let's see here. Or raise a kid together. That's perfect. This can be a way that a partnership can succeed when you have a family or children, and that often happens. The child goes to college, and then the partnership splits once that does that action in the world, commitment, 10th house, which is children. Raising children can be 10th house. I've seen it over and over again. Many different texts would say the same. Let me see here, Tina. Let's check what you've got. Venus conjunct Israel ascendant, and Mercury conjunct natal with Jupiter, both on 11/27. Yeah, let's see what happens with Israel. I mean, it's a major story. Palestine, Gaza, West Bank, Israel, all over the headlines. And they've said, I think they're saying more months. So this is likely going to be here for a while. So let's just, boy, I don't want to get too much into that again, but certainly in my thoughts, just to kind of send good energy so that situation can heal as soon as possible. Okay, let's just keep going. A couple more slides, then we'll go to the election, then we'll do the horoscopes. But derived houses from the full moon. I want to just bring this in because it really underscores what a T-square is, what it means when you have things in the mutable axis. Okay. Life problems, if you've ever heard this, romances and finances. This is a saying that the problems for most people boil down to romances and finances. I think I know we think about possessions as the second house, according to this chart. This is from astrolibrary.org. One of my favorite things to do is just type in astrology houses to any of your search engines, click image, and you'll get like tens of these. So many people have made these. It's just a shortcut into house significations. And I'm not even saying this is the best one I've seen, but I just pulled one that looked kind of good. But look, it's career. Okay, that's where Saturn and Pisces is. And it's marriage and partnership. That's where the stellium and where Mercury is. It's our career, aka finances. There's an element of that, right? The 2nd, 6th, and 10th are work houses. And then it's the other, the romance. And so we're dealing with what I call the crux of life when we think about the angular houses. 10th. So let's walk through. It's 1st, 10, 7, 4. And what are the topics? Self, other, first 7. Career, home, the most the core of the life when you can strip everything away. Do you have a place to live? Do you have a job? Do you have a partner or some touch point with others? And how is the self? And so this full moon with a T-square angular to Gemini moon full, it really does bring us in. It's a great example of like this technique of the crux of the angular houses, and it kind of shakes the core, the foundation of a moment. And so I think it's worth considering that the intensities of life, the core of the life is kind of shook here in this moment. Okay. Let's see here. I'm going to share this. Thank you, Intrinsic. So born 26 May 1990. I'm guessing this is Zuckerberg. The moon is, oh no, this is you. This is your chart. Okay, here. I'll just read it because I've got it up here. The moon is conjunct my sun, but the catch to my chart is I'm a 1 degree Sag rising. Ever since May 26th lunar eclipse in 2021, transits have been consistently powerful. Love it. Cool. And that was an eclipse either in Sagittarius or Gemini. That was a lunar eclipse actually in Sagittarius. So it's the power of eclipses intrinsic. You get eclipses in your first house. It can radically alter selfhood. It can bring us into intensifications with spiritual connection. Sometimes it's lifelong. So it's beautiful to hear that. Cool to hear. Let me see here. Harsh truths that are coming out with this full moon. Yep, that's Gemini, the truth, right? The words, and those truths may be coming out here with the full moon. Okay, let's keep going. I know there's only a few more here. I think even 1 or 2, but derived houses from the full moon, Mars and Saturn square the luminaries. I've talked about that so much already, but let me just quickly, obstacles and difficulties too by aspect. So it's not just, it's these aspects. We've gone over this a lot. I think this slide might have some redundancy. But Mars is force and power. Just a little bit of a delineation about what Mars and Saturn are. Mars is force and power and passion and really the act of breakage. Okay, Saturn is the coldness, the restriction, the loss, the grief, and the sadness. So heavy duty stuff. And those are both closely square the sun and the moon. And it might be difficult, but dynamic in the Tarnasian sense changes. And so that's kind of cool to see. Pentagon, WikiLeaks tweet from today or yesterday. Pentagon moving toward letting AI weapons autonomously decide to kill humans. Business Insider. Twitchy Tuesdays, I think this is some of the harsh truths that are coming out. This is all age of air stuff. We have a malefic T-square in an air sign, full moon. So these are the kind of stories that I think are fitting of the symbolism. Okay. That's it for the full moon breakdown. I hope it gave you something, and that's the thing about astrology. We take what it gives us, we throw away the rest. I hope your relationships and your career and all of that's going really, really well right now. I bet for a bunch of you it is. And so this might just be felt more like a kind of wrinkle or just a ripple rather than anything major. And I wish that for everybody here. Okay, this is the waning phase election. I only picked one out this time. And it is the return of the Leo moon. Right now, since Mars has left Scorpio, or will have left Scorpio by the time you get to 2 December at 0609 UTC, we get the freeing up of the fixed axis. Excuse me. That's a major story here in December. We get an axis where the moon now can travel through that axis and make aspects to Jupiter. So it will have an aspect to Jupiter in this chart. It makes an aspect to Venus. It's aspected by benefics. It's not aspected in a challenging way by malefics, averse to Saturn, trine Mars. So this is a lovely moon in terms of it being protected. It is The domicile Lord Sun is in Sagittarius, where the Sun likes that fire sign. This chart I've got is the night, so the Sun isn't technically the first triplicity Lord, but it's the second one by night. You have the Moon in this case separating from Jupiter and applying to the Sun. It kind of gets tricky because the Mars is close to the Sun. To get an aspect here, you want to kind of maybe avoid that martial aspect. You can't really get it applying to Jupiter, or if you do, it's carrying Mars as light or too close to Mars. But still, even if you set aside that way of doing elections and just having the Moon being witnessed by sign, by benefics, and easier aspects to Mars and Saturn, you're going to be way farther ahead than had it not been the case. New identities being forged, right? Leo Moon. And I think some of those summer identities with that rebirth of Venus right here in Leo, those may be coming into play now. Remember that. And it's coming up for me in some readings this week. It's like, remember what happened this summer. All of that was major breakthroughs around Venus and the Sun and Leo. Big breakthroughs around identity. And we're living with that now. We get to carry that forward. That's the cool thing. And so this moon might be a good time to do some of that, carry some of those summer breakthroughs forward. Okay, let's see here. There we go. Okay, so that's the election. What I'm going to do now is just wind this down. Then I'm going to do horoscopes. But always, you can go to my website, sjanderson144.com, check out where the planets are. Click there to schedule an astrology reading. You can buy gift certificates if you're looking for a holiday gift. Just click on that. It's the next screen. It'll say gift certificate. Let me see here. There's two things I want to point out to you that I've been on recently, two shows. This one was with Ileana Samsara, a friend of mine, really cool astrologer. She's got a YouTube channel, Star Sound Astrology. She's cool. She's really good. And we had this long talk talking about the transformation of the USA. I had released that video, Rebirth of America. But we got into some really cool stuff in this talk. We were talking about the Chiron solar eclipse in April, where you have the Chiron return of the US Libra chart, and Chiron is 1 degree minute from that solar eclipse in April. It's a major theme for 2024, Chiron and Aries. And how it's going to infuse those eclipses. And so we're getting into things like the wounds of war and the Christmas truce in World War I with German and English soldiers in the trenches. They stopped war. And this idea we can kind of heal the wounds of war. We talk about a lot of that there. So check that out. And then I was on a podcast, the Kali Institute. This is one of my favorite things in astrology. Jen Zart, that's her. She runs the Kali Institute. They're collecting physical books to preserve them. And she had me on her podcast, Within Orb, episode 18. Type that in. That was a cool talk too. We talked a lot about books and some of my kind of fundamental astrological ideas and texts and how I use texts and things like that. So check that one out. And always check me out on World Astrology Reports. You can see my monthly appearance here with this monthly show we're doing. Steph Koifman, Dan Waits, and the new one's coming out real soon here. Let me see my 24 November, probably in the next 4 or 5 days, it will have the December forecast. Mars and Venus and Scorpio is going to be a big part of that forecast. So I know we talked about a little bit of that earlier. This will have a bigger breakdown here. Okay, so that's it. I'm shifting to horoscopes. Always come to the timestamps later. If you want to leave the live now, you can. I'm not saying you should leave, but I know time's valuable. Everyone's busy. Come back to those timestamps, find your sign if you want to get a little bit of a gateway into your specific sign or a specific sign. All right, I'm going to take a sip of tea before I do this, some black tea. And let's see here. That was a great show. Thank you, Jen, for the compliment on that great show with Jen. Yeah, Jen is amazing. I love her work. I love everything Kali Institute's about. I'm just so happy to even just get to be able to talk with her, and it's just so cool. Check her stuff out, if you can. And you may want to get involved in Kali somehow, because it's preserving the books that we're going to need. I mean, a big part of this last week on X, Twitter, these conversations about entropy of information, we're going to lose all the digital. A lot of people are saying. So we still need to preserve the books because the digital's going out. I mean, all these podcasts, everything people are doing, you got to get it into some kind of printed form. So let me just have a little black tea and kind of chill before the horoscope section. Okay. So I'm going to run through these signs and let's see what we've got going on here with each of the signs. You can read these for anything. I'm not someone only read for your rising or only read for your sun or moon. Maybe read for your Venus. I don't know. Maybe read for whatever. You might have a chart that's accentuating a certain sign for one reason or another. Maybe you want to hear it out for those placements. But the general rule, if you're rising sign, that's going to kind of match what I'm talking about. So that is actually a good suggestion. Okay, so Aries and Aries rising, what's going down with you? Well, the theme, when you look at how much of this moment is a mutable T-square, it really does center one of the houses, the groups of houses in each of our charts. So for cardinal risings, you're going to be talking about cadent houses as the themes, as a main theme, and then the sub themes of each cadent house being brought in here. So for you, Aries rising, are there some kind of siblings, communal friendships, local community stuff? And maybe you're going to have to be brought into some kind of, oppositional component with maybe a belief system, maybe a worldview, and you're kind of struggling with some of the family or siblings around your belief. Like this would be perfect for going back home for Thanksgiving, and there's kind of navigating some challenges with different ideas about the world. Saturn here, maybe you feel trapped and you can't escape, and you're trying to figure that out. That's where I would go here. Where's that? The Venus is the final dispositor of the sky right here. Maybe you can rely on your partner and just kind of pair off with a partner, and escape some of the worst of these kind of relational obstacles or family obstacles around beliefs in the world. Okay, Taurus rising. For you and for all fixed risings, the mutable signs are in the succeedant houses. The mutable signs are in, the succeedant houses, 5, 8, 2, 11, the so-called money houses. What's going on with money right now? Are you spending too much on Black Friday, Taurus rising? There's a whole conversation on X Twitter about Taurus and spending. I didn't get too into it, but I saw people were talking about the Taurus archetype and do they spend a lot or are they stingy? Just with Jupiter in the first and then the full moon happening in the second, we're just wondering about the resource component and how maybe well budgeted you are during a period that can be spendy, holiday season. I would keep that in mind right now. You may want to just pull back a little bit, or if there are challenges, maybe you've got promises you made to other people, whether that's creditors or just your spouse or your roommates or something. It feels like money drama with roommates. Saturn in Pisces, maybe you can get a loan, that could be the 11th house benefactor comes through to help you out, or some kind of family member, or just, rely on Saturn generally can be conservative or conserving, or your budget, right? And maybe you want to come back to some creative budgeting. And that might be the way to go, and try to find the others. Maybe go to like Reddit, a subreddit /budgeting. That would be an 11th house Saturn and Pisces. Learn some and kind of get creative. Okay. Gemini, what's going on with Gemini? We've talked so much about it. Gemini, major dynamic stuff with relationships and partnerships and career. Everything I already broke down in the video. Let me see what else I could say about Gemini. Another layer. So I'm doing a certain layer here. Let's go a little bit deeper. You got the moon in the first, rules your second. The moon rules your 12th and second. By exaltation, Taurus, by domicile, Cancer. So that's another way, always into any moment. If we're looking at a planet, in this case, the moon in Gemini, talking about the body, how comfortable are you? What do you need to label to be comfortable? Maybe this could be like self-labeling. Anytime the first house is active, we're talking about how we think about ourselves. And I think the labels we assign to identity can be extremely important for empowerment, can't they? And so, maybe this is a time to just kind of work on your self-talk, and the second house can be resources, in the sense of the way we talk about ourselves, right? Our inner dialogue is a resource, man. You can pump yourself up by just putting on some affirmations and some good music. You can pump yourself up. That's all second house in a certain way. They call it self-esteem sometimes. I know those are controversies around what exactly is the second house, but I do think there's a component of the self-esteem supporting us. And that may be what you're seeing here with the moon ruling the second and the first. So I'm going to move on from that, but that's just kind of another layer here, aside from everything else we already talked about for you, Gemini. Shifting into Cancer. Now we've got a whole 12th house thing. We're back to a cardinal sign and the cadent houses. I'd say just retreat, man. Cancer and Cancer rising, retreat into your safe space if you can. And if there's some health stuff going on, if there is some like overwork, maybe this is someone who has to work during the Thanksgiving holiday and you're really struggling to get a safe space, but you can't because you're having to go into labor the whole time. And that, I'm sad that you would have to do that, but if you can just take some time, like when you get off, there's times in my life, I work every day all the time anyway, but times when I've just been so drained, like going to these places I used to work, and it's just even taking that hour, coming home, going to the grocery store, getting your favorite drink that you just earned the money to buy, and then just going to rest for an hour or two. Maybe you can find some room for that in spite of what might be a very busy time. Okay, so what else here with Saturn in the ninth? Learning, studying, long-term planning, but where you're actually in the learning about the planning, that might be some of that Saturnine stuff. Maybe you have to set that aside right now to focus on the labors and your ability to stay sane. 6th, 12th house oppositions with Mars. So, okay, Leo rising. What's going on with you, or Leo energy? Back to succeedant houses. Is there something with like a group or an organization? Maybe you've got some astrology group you've joined. I'm just as an example. And your group chat, like your astrology group chat, there's some kind of drama and it's not fun anymore, right? There's your Sagittarius in the 5th, and you're having to kind of navigate, how fun is it? Do you want to maybe stay with it? How useful is it in terms of an 8th house perspective to like, is it actually helping you build and supporting the resource, or is it just like gossip and drama? That's just one example. It doesn't have to be an astrology group chat. It can be anything. I say astrology partly because of how mercurial the moment is, and that's the planet of astrology, but it could be anything. These group chats these days, I don't know about you all, but man, I've had to get off of so many chat apps because you just wake up and I spend my whole day. It's this app, and this app, and this app, and this app. I want off more apps. I'm tired of being on the apps. And let me see here. I'm going to share this with everybody, Jonna. Yeah, gonna go stir something up on Twitter. That's always seems like it's would be perfect, right? Mercury in detriment in Sag, and just kind of stir stuff up. I've seen, since Mercury's been in Sag, actually, debates about, let's see, what was the one? What is Mars? People wanted to debate Mars and sex. That's a common one that comes back a lot. I had someone debating with me. I wasn't even trying to get into a debate, but I was mentioning elemental ages, and someone was trying to come at me around like sidereal versus tropical stuff that it just gets rehashed over and over. So I've seen these debates kind of percolating here. I wouldn't be surprised if there's some kind of major Twitter drama coming up here over this weekend. Okay, let's keep going. Virgo rising, how are you? What's going on, Virgo? I'll say this, I'm coming around to Virgo more. I think we have cycles in our lives where certain periods in our life, a sign is maybe not part of how we think or how we're maybe engaged with as much. That's been Virgo for me, I'll admit it, for a lot of my life. But I've been coming around to it more just recently. I think that Mercury retrograde in Virgo did something to me this summer where I'm like, okay, I need some more Virgo. I need to give it some love. Okay, let's come here and let's see what's going on with you, Virgo. So right away, we know Mercury rules the moon and rules the 1st house for you. And the moon is in the 10th. What kind of career climax is happening for you? Breakthroughs or in the job, maybe struggles you're going to have to push through to have some kind of achievement this weekend. I feel like this could be the boxer who like steps into the ring and then wins the title, right? That would be perfect for a malefic T-square with moon in the 10th. A victory that's hard fought or hard won. And, even maybe having to dig into the roots, the private sphere with the 4th house. You may need to dig into like your lessons from your family or lineage, or digging into that wisdom of history as a way to kind of propel you in a certain sense. Maybe you need to slough off the parental conditioning or the, social, cultural stuff that you came out of as a youth, as a young, we're all made from our society and culture and family, basically. That's who we are. And the struggle of adulthood is to try to slough off that, retain the good stuff, slough off the bad stuff, or at least learn to live and integrate with the bad stuff. That feels like a major theme here for Virgo during this time. And maybe you take a break from partnership. Saturn right there. You're just like, nope, I need some me time. And you just do you as you're kind of struggling with some of these other challenges. All right, let's keep going. Libra rising, Venus right in your first during this moment, final dispositor of the sky with Ketu. I wonder how your Venus in Libra has been, frankly. How's that felt for you, Libra rising? Have you come into some new self-understanding? Have you had some breakthroughs around why you're here and who you want to be? Even if it's been Ketu-like or kind of draining at times, you might consider how useful Venus has been there. Once a year, right? Venus in Libra. And so against the backdrop of those, that Venusian understanding, maybe you're struggling right now with publishing or writing or speaking, some kind of ninth house thing. And you've got groups of people or locals or family, like siblings or close friends that are maybe, how are your friends supporting you? Are they blocking? Are they constraining? Or are they vibing with this new Venus in Libra, right? The trine. And there's a dance there. There might be some conversations that need to be had, some Sagittarian. Here's some truth-telling, blurting. Can't help it, but I got to blurt this truth. And then how's the health stuff going with Saturn? Are you laying some new foundations, hitting the gym, going on your fast, all of that stuff? Okay. Scorpio rising. Feel the Ketu influence for sure, Madeline? Yeah, I can feel it for sure myself as a Libra rising. So I shouldn't say what I am because you might influence it like, oh, he's talking about himself. But okay, so Scorpio rising. You will have Mars in the second, but it's the moon in the 8th second. So we're now back to money stuff, Scorpio rising. Maybe you're having to go. I feel like this whole Mercury retrograde for Scorpio risings is going to be about like a spending plan that they hit 2024 with, hit the ground running in 2024 with. And maybe with Mars and the Sun and Sagittarius here, there might be a desire just to spend a little bit, quick to spend or fast to spend without maybe thinking as much. Be aware of that. And then the Mercury retrograde comes and it's like, oh, you're going to have to pick up the pieces or kind of reevaluate some of the decisions that you made. 8th house moon, how comfortable are you with the material entanglements, at every level? And I think, again, a major theme, maybe put some of the fun on hold. Saturn in the 5th, put some of the fun on hold so you can navigate this budgeting crisis, or this, I don't want to say crisis in the Tarnasian sense of the dynamic, critical aspects. Okay. All right. So let's keep pushing. Sagittarius rising. I'm making my 2024 budget now, letting go of old things so I can travel in the UK. Beautiful, Chris. I think that's perfect for you. And I think that'll extend into December, and perfect with that Mercury retrograde, second to first. And this is, by the way, I think, thanks for the comment, because one way to look at any Mercury retrograde is that it's, especially when it's over the boundary of a sign, is that Mercury is trying to review the second to support the first, because it's going to go backwards from Capricorn to Sag. So the review topic, the review that Mercury retrograde can bring carries us from one topic back to the previous house topic. And so it's perfect to consider, like, okay, the budgeting for purposes of what your goals are, what the self-expression or expansion wants to be. So I love it. Have fun in the UK. Wow, I want to come. That sounds really awesome. Okay. Next, Capricorn rising. What's going on with you, Capricorn rising? It's all cadency. Is there some health stuff? Obstacles with health, challenges with people that are draining? This feels like the mind with Gemini in the 6th. Is there kind of a mental drain that's happening? Maybe you've got so much going on that you're just kind of feeling drained and the mind is just mush, and the kind of Gemini stuff can't even kind of quite go down, or it's too much anxiety. This is the classic anxiety moment when you have Mercury impinging on the 6th house with the moon. Anxiety comes from the body as much as the mind. There's that whole mind-body thing. Sometimes there's roots in both, and that would be the moon here. I would just say focus on health. Meditation could be good. Quiet the mind, relax, maybe focus on work with Venus and Libra in your 10th, and just kind of do that whole work monk thing as a way to kind of work through this stuff, or put it on the back burner for now. I think I'll leave it there. Saturn in the 3rd. I wonder about, I feel like this could be spiritual too, like just going to that house of the goddess and using Saturn. Let's go with Dorotheus as Saturn as feminine. Get into your deep lunar goddess stuff, that foundational Mother Gaia energy, and use that Venus in Libra being ruled by exaltation by that Saturn to kind of navigate whatever this tension is for you. So good luck, Capricorn rising. Got Mars coming in right in January, exalted Mars in your first. I think that'll be really good for you. Okay, Aquarius rising. Hey, Sam, peace. Take care. Glad you could make it. Peace. Okay, Aquarius rising. For you, 2 more signs and we're out of here. But Aquarius rising, you've got... this is this is in your succeeding houses, rather. So we're back to 5th house, children. What's going on with your children, Aquarius rising? Any kids in your life? What's going on with fun, hobbies, creative stuff? I mean, this could be major creative breakthrough. Like maybe you had some kind of group art project and you're just like, I can't deal anymore. And you're just like, no. And you just go into some kind of creative cocoon, use that Venus in Libra, some kind of God and creativity synergy with Ketu. And that's a way where the kind of self-creative powers can emerge. Maybe you have some kind of group art show that would fit here. And there's a delicate dance between finding your identity and your creative identity versus some kind of group activity. Saturn in the 2nd, I would go easy on the budgets right now and maybe just focus on, you can create with, I know a lot of tools sometimes are needed for creativity, but once you have the tools, it's just about spending time with the tools, right? If the tools are good, like I've got a word processor, nothing stops me from writing the article. It's right there. I just need to do it. And that might be what this is saying, kind of, there's no more tools you need. It's just make and do, So, maybe looking for a patron. I don't know if that, and how you're navigating the patron's desires versus your creative desires. That could be another way in here. Okay. Final sign, Pisces rising. What's good, Pisces? Hope you're doing really, really well. You've got a 4th house thing. How are your parents? First thing I would say, if you have parents that are still with us, how is your home life? And what if this moon is going to require some kind of major shifting with that mutation as maybe you're transitioning from one apartment to another or one house to another? Maybe there's just some real push and pull in your life right now. If work is overwhelming, and your career stuff, and you're not able to spend as much time at home as you want, and you're feeling dislodged. I mean, that could be something with this malefic T-square. Saturn in the 1st, since March 2023, got over 2 years of it for at least Pisces for good. What kind of new stripped down selfhood has emerged here? Maybe there's more discipline and kind of more of a clarity around what serves you and what doesn't, as you're letting go of things. That this might be a peak moment where you're kind of realizing that things in the home also might need to be Marie Kondoed, in service of some of this career stuff that's going on. So just keep that in mind, Pisces rising. Good luck out there. And all right, that's it. Hey, everyone, great to see you. Glad to be here. And I hope that you have a wonderful full moon in Gemini on Monday and have a wonderful waning phase. I'll see you next time that I do a live before the next. It'll be a new moon. And I look forward to that new moon, and I look forward to connecting with everyone. So peace out, take care, and I'll talk to you very, very soon. Bye-bye.